Watching animation and cartoons is one of the best parts of childhood. Some of us adults have been lucky and seen some of the best animations in the history of cinema as a child, but some of us were limited to anything that aired on television. But even if we are older, it is still not too late to see the best animations or the so-called more intimate cartoons, with children or even alone. In this and next videos, we wanna introduce you the best animations in the world. The first one is Inside Out. The literal translation of the film becomes something of an inside-out theme. It's not beautiful, but it conveys the meaning. What really happens inside every character we meet in life and only see their appearance and reactions. It can also mean appearance and interior. The idea of the film line is brilliant, that we want to get rid of the mechanism of people's inner feelings and paint it in a very simple way, so that a 7 to 8 year old child can understand it. This animation is just as simple as the emotions it embodies, on one simple level and complex and deep on another. We are going to be on the path of a child growing up. What are the most basic emotions that accompany us from birth and their effects? Laughter, crying, fear and anger. The screenwriters of the Inside Out have also added the character of hatred to those four main senses. Subscribe our YouTube channel to watch the rest of this video and more. This just, of course, does not mean hatred at all. It is a feeling between a couple and hatred mixed with jealousy. Peter Docter, who came up with the original idea for the film and was himself one of the screenwriters, first wrote the story of the companionship of joy and fear. Naturally, fear is a more familiar feeling to children, but the Doctor later concludes that the coexistence of joy and sadness gives the script a more accurate framework. The screenwriter simplified the function of the brain and emotions like a mathematical equation. There is a steering control device. Emotions are placed behind it and the buttons are pressed, which actually makes you react to those around you. Control is in the hands of joy, anger, hatred, fear and sadness. These are your main senses. Senses that have been with you since childhood. More complex emotions such as love, prejudice, reason or etc. manifest themselves later in these main senses in man. I do not know of any other story that has been so easy and restrained to have been able to portray the most complex movements and decisions of man in such a pleasant and fresh way. The message of the film is clear. On the way to maturity and growing up, you have to cultivate all your emotions together, whether those that make you and others happy like joy or those that seem useless as sadness or anger in the first place. Their function is defined in the Inside Out script. This animation was produced in 2015 and its IMDb score is 8.1. Not only A Spirited Away is considered one of the best animations in the history of cinema, but critics say it is one of the best films of the third millennium. A humorous animation that takes place in the fantasy world full of water and color of Miyazaki and is the story of the maturity of its hero character. 10-year-old Chihiro and his parents are on their way to their new home when their father takes a shortcut. On their way, they arrive at an abandoned amusement park. Chihiro's father insists on walking in the park. They discover a restaurant where Chihiro's parents start eating, a restaurant where no one is present. Chihiro walks around the street and meets a boy named Hako, who warns him to return by the river before sunset. Chihiro's parents turn into pigs, and in short, Chihiro enters a world full of ghosts and wizards. The film was produced with a budget of $15 million and sold $346 million worldwide. Critics praise Miyazaki's directing style. Miyazaki's animation is comparable to that of Lewis Carroll, from whom we know Alice's Adventure in Wonderland better than any of his other works. A film in which exotic characters manage to create a certain tension. This animation was produced in 2001 and its IMDb score is 8.6. Of course you watched WALL-E. A boy meets an only girl, falls in love with her and pursues her to the end of the earth, in this case to the end of the world. It does not matter if they are robots. It does not matter that there are no dialogues. It does not matter what the animation. When Wally and Eve dance together in the sky and among the stars, we may feel that we are watching a film by Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. WALL-E is not just a first-rate animation, but one of the best comedy romances of recent years. WALL-E is the 9th animation produced by Pixar, the story of a garbage collector in a future where the earth is destroyed and uninhabitable, cleans the earth of garbage, until the probe sends a robot named Eve to Earth, who WALL-E falls in love with her and follows her across the galaxy. The animation was produced with a detailed budget of $180 million and of course sold more than $500 million. This animation was one of the most complex productions of Pixar since the time of the Monsters, Inc., because the world and its history had to be designed in a convincing way. While most Pixar animations have around 75,000 storyboards, 125,000 storyboards were drawn for WALL-E. Critics fell in love with the film. They believe that WALL-E shows that the only medium of cinema is the human imagination. This animation was produced in 2008 and its IMDb score is 8.4. The song We Are Amazing, which is the favorite song of Emmett Brakowski, is a comprehensive introduction to the spirit of the current Lego movie. The concept becomes more and more obvious as the film progresses and corrects the audience's perception from the first point of the view. At the beginning of the film and during the introduction of Emmett, this amazing world seems to refer to their orderly, regular, colorful and lively life. A life that seems perfect, but what is seen is in fact a great deception and is nothing but a priceless and worthless mask of happiness. And beneath this charming and colorful show, a city breathes, made of identical pieces, uniformly designed templates, and subordinate people. The hero of the Lego movie is one of these programmed workers, and this is the great arrogance of the Lego movie. It does not choose his chosen one from the multitude of superheroes, from the hearts of comics and numerous fans of the fantasy world and the real heroes of history and sports. Rather, he chooses a simple worker who likes a Lego man named Wild Aside, who later turns out to wish for a famous prophecy about him, and ends up in the middle of a story that is not in principle the play of ordinary people. Now it's time for the Lego movie to take the plunge and show the audience the real wonder of the passionate song, being together. As the song says, everything is amazing and good when we are part of a team, and everything gets better and better when we work together. This may seem like it at first, which means that the key to success lies in well-organized teamwork and that well-planned moves respond more and better to the genius monotony of a group of scary people. But this is not the case, and as we go further, we find that this conservative thinking fails on its own, without showing human values and leading the leaders. Eventually, the gathering and interaction of the chosen ones and the awakened people will lead to a war that gives the victory of the city. This animation was produced in 2014 and its IMDb score is 7.7. The Toy Story. This comedy about camaraderie is the first computer-generated animation. The film takes place in a world where toys come to life out of sight and have their own lives and associations. A cowboy doll named Woody is Andy's favorite toy. Woody is the city sheriff until they buy Andy a new toy. Buzz Lightyear is an astronaut. Woody and Buzz are engaged in a competition to attract Andy's attention. But when one of them gets into a crisis, the other tries his best to save him, and eventually a friendship is formed between the two, which takes them both to infinity and beyond. This was John Lasseter's first computer animation experience at Pixar. Lasseter was one of the founders of Pixar, a former Walt Disney Company employee. Disney also wanted to work on the animation, but eventually, after a series of Pixar meetings, decided that the Toy Story belonged to them. All major companies from Coca-Cola to Pepsi became movie sponsors. Critics have argued that the film is not only entertaining, but also creative, a movie that members of a family of all ages can enjoy. This animation was produced in 1995 and its IMDb score is 8.3.